the Mariners' schedule right now sets them up for the playoffs, like, beautifully.
They've got to keep winning games. They have to keep winning in August when the schedule favors them the most. But if they can keep winning in August and actually establish some ground, they can still do this.
When I look at this schedule, can I just read you this schedule here in August? They should be in a playoff spot by the time this schedule is up. I mean, we're talking about 4 games against the Royals, 3 games against the White Sox, 3 more games against the Royals, 3 games against the A's, then 3 games against the Mets. You're telling me that's not putting you in a playoff spot? It should, in theory.
Let's put it like this. If the Mariners do not take advantage against all those teams, then they don't deserve to be in the playoffs. You have to capitalize against those teams that are non-competitive to as nice as slightly below average. I mean, even like the Mets, they were slightly below average before they shipped off. Now they're closer to the non-competitive side. If you're the Mariners, you have to key in on these teams. And honestly, you're probably going to need another 17 to 18 win month. But against all those clubs, why not?
I said pretty emphatically to you yesterday, I said by the time that stretch is over, by the time September 3rd rolls around and they finish off the Mets and Queens, you would think they need to be have a 3-game lead of a playoff spot. Is that absurd?
You know, I thought it was at first when you laid that out to me, because I said, that's a lot of ground to make up in the month of August. But then when you look at the schedule and who they're playing compared to who waits on the other side of that tunnel in September, they have to win now. They have to take advantage of those teams. You have to establish yourself into that last wild card spot before that stretch in September. Because if you don't, it is a uphill climb.
What's funny is you look at the overall strength of record for the Mariners through the rest of the season. Their strength of record, opponent strength of record is 28th. But if you look at the final 3.5 weeks of the season, I'm struggling to believe how that math actually checks out. Over the final 3.5 weeks of the Mariners season, you're talking about 4 with the Rays, 3 with the Dodgers, 3 with the Rangers, 3 with the Astros, and 3 more with the Rangers. That sounds like a nightmare to me.
It sounds like a gauntlet is what it is, because it is. The Mariners, I mean, if they don't make up a lot of ground here in August and early September against all those aforementioned teams, they're going to have to play their best baseball of the season to give themselves a shot to get in the playoffs. Because if they don't, if they just roll over against all those teams that are at the moment superior to them, then it's just not to be this year. But if they can establish some real momentum against the teams they should beat, they've all of a sudden created a cushion for themselves where it is a possibility again.
And every single one of those teams I mentioned were buyers at the deadline, all of them. And all of them added pretty significant pieces to their major league roster. And I mean, you didn't. So as you mentioned, that the talent disadvantage is there. And I think it's kind of fascinating. It's going to set up quite a seesaw, and quite opposite to what we saw last year, where the final handful of weeks last year when the Mariners were going down the stretch run of the season, it was a cakewalk. And we were just waiting for them to seize that playoff spot. But this year, I mean, if the Mariners are holding the lead of a playoff spot with 2 weeks remaining, I might start drinking more. I'm dead serious.
That is going to be a stressful 2 weeks if they draw everybody back into this thing. If they're actually in a wild card spot or within a game of a wild card spot, even 2 games of a wild card spot, and that's the schedule that they have in front of them, that is going to be a roller coaster of a ride the last 2 weeks. Because again, you have to play up to or better than the level of the best competition in baseball to outlast those teams and to get yourself into the position that you want to be, which is one of those 6 playoff spots. Could be just that last wild card spot. That may be the only thing they have a shot at this point. But you're going to have to do it, because if you don't, those teams are going to pummel right over you, and the season's going to kind of be dead.
I have a headache literally just looking at the last 2 weeks. I mean, it is going to be I'm going to have nightmares about facing the Rangers. Sorry, I said they had a 3-game series to finish the season. It's actually 4. So you're telling me they're going to have to probably have a substantial winning record against playing 13 games against the Rangers and Astros to finish the year. That sounds like something out of a nightmare.
even going to Cincinnati to play the Reds might not be World Series contenders this year, but as we've seen, they might win the Central. They might go to the playoffs. That Reds team is very similar to how this Mariners core started to form in 2021 and 2022, where they are right at the point where they're starting to get scary, and we know what Elly De La Cruz can do. That's not going to be an easy series either. I mean, September is a tough month if you're the Seattle Mariners.
At least there's 3 games with the A's right in the middle.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. They better win all 3 of those games.
Yes. If they don't win all 3 of those games, I will guarantee they miss the playoffs. I will say it here on this podcast. They lose one of those games to the A's, they're out.
You're going full Trevor Plouffe. Season's over. You're proclaiming
season's dead. No. So funny enough, we say that they play on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now there's a chance they lose on Monday or Tuesday, and we'll circle back to this. But if we're talking about September 20th's podcast on a Wednesday, I will come on here and I will open the show by saying the Mariners are dead. Clip that.
Reminds me of that it half reminds me of that Family Guy scene with the Mets, where it's different because your scenario is actually at the end of the season. But I'm thinking of that Stewie clip from Family Guy. It's like, Halloween's worse than being a Mets fan. And then it just cuts to that clip of the PA guy saying, opening day, here's the first pitch, and the season's over. That'll be you here on this podcast. You're going to open it up. Welcome to the Marine Layer podcast, and season's dead.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's going to be my first episode after the Mariners miss out on Ohtani. Preview.
Or not. Again,
we're going
to start the conversations now. I'm going to promote this a ton in those weeks leading up to the Angels series. So I've decided I'm going to be at all those games. And I am legitimately passing out index cards to people like we talked about on the last show to get everybody in unison to getting to chant Ohtani, come to Seattle every single at bat that series. Like, do your part, fans. You want them? Do your part. Let them hear you. Don't do it once. Do it about 10 to 12 times and do not let up. I'm going to talk about this way more when it gets closer because we need to use this platform to use any voice we have to get fans going on this because I'm serious about this.
Can we mic up Mike Trout during that? I'd love to hear what he had to say.
That'd be great. But hey, if you're listening to this now, this isn't going away. And I will be there during that Angels series. TJ's in Oregon, but I will be there. And we're going to be making it happen. We're going to be getting fans rallied. But we'll put a pin in that for later.